Let's go. All right. I'm excited to be here with my new friend, Max Wild. Max, let me give you a quick intro. So, Max is the co founder and CEO of 343 Labs, leading electronic music production and DJ school with campuses in New York City and Berlin. He's tuned in from Berlin right now. He has built 343 Labs into a global community of producers, DJs, instructors, and industry professionals, offering comprehensive training in music production, DJing, sound design, mixing, mastering, live performance, and artist development. He's an internationally active electronic musician, producer, educator, and saxophonist who combines real-world industry experience with a passion for preparing artists for sustainable careers in music. And I'm really excited to have him on the podcast today to talk a little bit about in a world where information is so abundant and pretty overwhelming. We have so much information at our fingertips with YouTube and now AI and all these different tools. It can be kind of overwhelming to keep on top of it and to actually to ship, to release your music, to put it out there and have accountability. And so excited to connect with them today and hear a little bit about what's really moving the needle right now at this community. So Max, thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Yeah. Hey, Michael. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the podcast and to dive into some of these hot topics.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, to kick things off, it sounds like you went through an interesting journey of going from being a touring saxophonist to running a music school on two different continents. And so I'm curious, what was the moment that you realized that education was part of the path?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, I'm a classically trained sax player, studied in London and then New York. And yeah, as you were saying, toured all over the world. Education was always a big part of what I did. So even while I was playing the sax, I was already teaching music right from the beginning. I guess I'm also I have a mindset for wanting to learn new things. And I think a lot of musicians have that, which is why they're also quite often good teachers or interested in education. And later on, after I was doing that for maybe about 10 years or so, I wanted to get into electronic music. When I was living in London, I was already kind of jamming out with a horn section at some of these really loud drum and bass clubs where we couldn't even hear each other play, but it was still fun. And my roommate was a drum and bass DJ. And then later on, fast forward like 10, 15 years, I wanted to get in. I heard about Ableton. I was like, whoa, this was like in 2011. So Ableton had already been out for 10 plus years, but I heard about Ableton. I was like, we got to try this. I got a copy of it. I didn't know what I was doing and started integrating it with my band. It sounded really cool, different. And then I was like, well, I've got to learn how to do this. So then I was living in New York and I Googled, learn Ableton or something like that. And there was one place that popped up, which was called Dubspot. And Dubspot was at the time one of the leading music production schools and DJ schools. I started as a DJ school and then did music production. And I think they were really known for their YouTube tutorials, because at the time in like the early 2000s, there was not much going on YouTube for music production. And that was before a lot of content came out, before the YouTube boom happened. So that's how Dubspot got its name, and it had an amazing community of producers, educators, students. And I became a student there, and because I already knew how to teach, so I learned Ableton there. And then because I already knew how to teach, I soon after started teaching them myself. And the rest, that's kind of how I got into music production and becoming a producer besides just a sax.
Cool. It is interesting the part you mentioned about how musicians often have because of the way that their mind works in terms of creativity and an open mind, find themselves being great teachers as well. And it does seem like in every hero's journey, there's a moment where they come back home and sort of pay it forward. So I actually think that there's all of us in some ways like have this need both to learn and to have a mentor, and also to mentor other people and kind of pay it forward. So I can definitely personally relate to the journey that you've gone on as well. So I think it's really cool what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, now that you've also built, this community with 343 Labs, and you've worked with a lot of musicians and producers, I'm curious what you see when they first come to you. What are like the biggest things that they're stuck on, and what's actually holding them back? Maybe like two different angles of that. Like when they come to you, what do they bring up? Like, what do they think is holding them back? And then what do you find that it's like actually the biggest thing that maybe they're aware of, or maybe they're not aware of, that's really holding them back?
Sure. Two great questions. I'll start with what they think is holding them back. I mean, it's a number of things. Some students thinking about the end goal without the kind of the steps before that. So they're like, oh, I've got great ideas. Let me start like selling my music, but they don't have the skills yet. So that's an obvious one. Well, take some classes and learn the tools, and then eventually you'll get there. The other type of student will be the one that realizes they need to learn the tools, but they get stuck on learning a lot of information on YouTube and not knowing how to apply it. They, it sounds obvious, but the feedback, right? Creating music, but not knowing if it's any good or not. Playing
It's
it
so
to,
hard to get good feedback too, isn't
yeah.
it?
It is,
Whenever
and you're playing
you
it to
talk
your
to your mom,
friends.
they're like, "It's
Yeah,
awesome, it's
exactly.
great."
Yeah. You sound great. Keep going. But like very actionable, honest feedback. Then the accountability, right? So, I mean, it's ironic. It happens to me. I wish I could take my own program because I don't have the accountability that our students have. But our students have deadlines. They have to finish projects. They have, the whole thing. When you're at home by yourself and you don't have those deadlines, you just don't finish music. Those are the big ones. And then obviously the community. So you're at home and people, they start realizing, yeah, maybe they've already made some great music, but now how do we market it? And you can't just send your music to a label and expect a response. You need to make those connections. You need to meet those people. And that's, where a place like 343 comes in, where we're building that community. And, that's something that's really important to us, where at this point, we have a big network of students, but we also have a big network of industry professionals that are labels, managers, licensing, promoters, and we invite them to the school to talk to our students, to meet them. We have an industry summit once a year for our students where we bring everyone together and our students pitch their projects, because at the end of the year, we have a 1-year program. They have to finish an EP and an electronic press kit, and they have to present their music to all these industry experts. And it's also an actual real world opportunity, because there are actually quite a number of real opportunities that have come straight out of that. And that's really where we're very happy for that to happen. That's exactly what we want to happen. But those are the things that students that are coming to us, that's what they're looking for. They realize that they need the community, they need the connections, they need the accountability, the mentorship, the feedback. That's something they can't get at home.
So good.
Yep.
Yeah, it is interesting. The power of a deadline, or the power of accountability, or just have something in your calendar. I've noticed personally, maybe you've had a similar experience too, but like my calendar has this magic ability where it's like, if I put something in my calendar, it happens. If I don't put it in my calendar, it almost like it doesn't happen. The life gets in the way. The things on my calendar, happen.
Yep.
So it makes a lot of sense that actually having those deadlines, having blocks set up in the calendar is really what moves the needle. So having worked with this community and seeing how many producers have 100 or more unfinished tracks, I'm curious what your framework is for helping them to finish their music and actually ship it.
Yeah, another great question. So actually, it's funny you mentioned that exact topic. We created a course which is called Finishing Music Mastery, and it tackles that exact problem.
There's probably quite a few people listening to this who might not even fully appreciate that they are a producer, but they're songwriters or musicians. They have all their demos, unfinished tracks that they haven't released yet.
Totally. And look, it's like learning anything. It's a skill you have to develop to finish music. And some of these things that we teach are things like, don't try to be perfect. Just get it done. Getting over creative blocks. Like, what can you do to get over a block? Set limitations, right? Let's make a track using only, 10 samples or something. Or give yourself a deadline. You've got to finish the drum part to this track. You've got an hour. That's it. So learning all these techniques so that you can be more consistent, be more effective. And it's like sound design, or it's like learning any skill, knowing how to mix and master. Well, learning how to finish music is just as an important skill, because if you don't finish music, you've got nothing to mix and master. So it's something that can be taught and learned.
That's great. I mean, that's probably one of the most valuable skills, or sort of like fundamental principles or fundamentals for how someone shows up in the world, whether it's their music or whatever it is that they're like creating, putting out, is the fact that they actually finish it and they put something out. Yeah, rather than waiting for years and years, 10 years to get it perfect or to get it just right. Actually, the ability to put something out and finish it. What do you think is the biggest blocker that holds people back from actually putting something out and making that happen?
I think one of the big blockers is trying to be perfect. And, technology, as great as it is, also holds us back with that, because technology is so powerful that we can just keep going and going and going. And you have basically a finished track. And since we, at least I'm speaking from a producer's point of view, where now, we can basically just make the whole track ourselves on a laptop from start to finish. We can just be like, oh no, wait, let me just fix that. Or let me open the session again, and you listen to it one more time, and then you finish that, and then you finish that. Back in the day when you were recording and you had like this really expensive studio booked and all these session musicians, and it was like, once that day of recording was over, that's what you had in the cans, and that's it. You had to make the best of it. So sometimes that limitation was a great one. That was a great limitation because you had to work with what you had. Now, I think having this access to technology, being able to just keep going and going, it's never good enough. And then you always think, oh, it's almost done. So I think the important lesson is just to set yourself a deadline and say, this is good enough. Now it's done. And then you start on the next track. And wherever that you leave that track, you just have to recognize that there is no such thing as perfect, and that's okay. This is a point where this track is right now, and the same track could have it's like Sliding Doors, that movie, where it's like, if I'd gone this way, this would have happened. If I'd gone this way, this would have happened. Well, a track could sound so many different ways, but there's no such thing as perfect. I think that's what holds people back.
Makes sense. I don't know if it's an analogy or metaphor, but what comes to mind is the Schrodinger's cat. Have you ever heard of Schrodinger's cat?
No. What's that?
It's like a quantum theory. So I'm not like
You're not a physicist
or really an expert, but from what I understand, it's like really an interesting thing where, according to quantum physics, and this is, I guess maybe this is part of why the meme is stuck, is because it's kind of dark. But if you have a cat in a box and there's like a chance that it's dead, or like you put it in this box and it's been there for a while, or like it might be dead, according to quantum physics, it's not actually alive or dead. It's in like a superposition until you open the box and you observe like whether it's alive or dead or not.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's an interesting theory. And how it connects to this is, it's almost like what you just described with the different paths. Like you have a different path, and like, yeah, you could go this way, you could go this way, but it's actually when you decide this is what it is, I'm going to ship it, I'm going to release it, that it collapses. Like the different possibilities, the different potentials collapse, and it's like, this is what it is. But until it has that, it's just pure potential, and it can't actually produce results or produce value. People can't enjoy it. So learning how to collapse that into like, this is what it is, and it could have gone different paths, but that's the final product. Interesting.
Yep. It's almost like decision paralysis, right? When we have too many options and then we stop deciding, and then we have a problem, because at the end of the day, the track needs to be done and it needs to be released.
Done is better than perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So speaking of the amazing, crazy tools that we have available today, I'm curious, from your experience, now that we have all these bedroom production tools that people can find everywhere, what are the skills that still separate the hobbyists from the artists that are building real careers?
Yeah. There are some hobbyists that have some really great music, and they could be the pros that we aspire to be, or the pros that are making it and that are on stage and they're releasing music. And some of those producers that are kind of doing it as a hobby, they either choose to do it as a hobby just because they don't have the aspiration to do it on a professional level. Let's just go with that demographic. And I think the only missing piece there is that they are not marketing their music, and they aren't building their network necessarily, or if they have one, they're not leveraging it. So I think once you have that, let's call it a product, that song or the music, then everything else starts. And it's kind of frustrating for a lot of independent artists because, again, back in the day, all you needed to do was like write a song, and then everyone else, the whole team would take care of everything else. As an independent artist, that's where the work starts, right? You've got the track, and now you have to do everything else. You've got to build your marketing campaign. You've got to do your social media. You've got to do your PR. You've got to do plan your tours, everything. So I think after you finish the song, the main thing that kind of separates the hobbyists from the pros is that the pros, they put in the work and they have that marketing strategy, they have their release strategy, they have a business plan. it's a business being an artist, right? And being successful at it. And again, going back to 343 Labs, we have a music business class where we talk about all these very important aspects because we want our students to succeed and launch their careers after. But building, treating your music as a business is super important, and sometimes artists look down on that. And, myself, I was also guilty of that. Like, I'm an artist. I don't want to think about business. But guess what? If you want to make money, you've got to think of your music as a business. And so having a business plan, having a release strategy, having, understanding how ads work, understanding how the Instagram or social media algorithms work, all that kind of stuff is super important.
Makes sense. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that where the line that separates folks, depending on their goals, right? Not everyone has to have a goal to make a career with their music, but if they do, they've got to think about it like a business and have a business plan. The analogy that we use that I think speaks really well to what we're describing right now is that building an audience and building a business is a little bit like starting a fire, in the sense that the music is like the logs for the fire, and you need the foundation, you need the logs in order to start a fire, or else it's just not really going to work. If you have wet grass, it's like good luck starting the fire. But a lot of artists are kind of hoping that they can just have the logs and put them in a fire pit and lightning is going to strike and all of a sudden like it starts, when actually have the logs as the first step, but then you have to figure out how to start the flames and how do you actually market the music and get it in front of the right people. Makes sense.
For sure. Yeah. I'll just add one thing to that, which is that it's the age-long discussion about talent versus hard work. And there are students or young producers or people getting into music production that don't have that much experience and they want to make a career out of their music, but they might think, oh, maybe I'm too old, or they'll come up with excuses why it might not work, right? I'm too old, or I don't know music theory, or I don't know this. They'll come up with excuses why they can't do it, or I don't have the talent, when in fact, all of that is just in their head. It's my very strong belief that anyone can succeed in music if you put in the hard work. It's about, I don't know, whatever the number is, but it's a low number, talent versus the work that you put in. So let's say that you have some talent, but not that much. The person with more talent and no hard work is not going to succeed as much as the person with less talent who puts in the hard work. So I think it's also kind of a mindset thing, and overcoming those psychological blocks that's also holding people back.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. I agree wholeheartedly that when it comes to music, especially, and the tools nowadays too, the tools that just make it possible to create as high quality music as it used to take tens of thousands of dollars to be working with a major record label, producers, and be able to do that yourself, and having access to the resources like someone like yourself in this community, that used to be impossible to do on your own. So it's pretty dang cool. But there's all this information, all this stuff, and that doesn't mean that people are actually implementing or executing, which makes everything that you've shared in terms of 343 so important. So really appreciate you hopping on our podcast to talk a little bit about what's happening right now and how artists can take their music and actually make an impact and put it out into the world and finish it and have the right mindset. So Max, I know you've got free events and workshops and things that you've created as resources to help artists to implement. Could you share, for anyone that's listening to this right now who's resonating with the conversation and would like to dive deeper, where can people go to learn more and check out any of your free resources?
First of all, check out 343labs.com. That's our website, and it's just the letters 343labs.com. And we've got events, free events in both in New York and in Berlin, and online. So we've got an events page, so you can check that out. Those are all free. A lot of free stuff on that. We've got a lot of free tutorials, a lot of free videos on our YouTube channel. We call it 343 TV. We have a weekly live stream with one of our in-house instructor / he's a great techno producer back from New York, John Selway, who is a very accomplished producer, and his show is also very entertaining. It's called Techno Saturdays. So that happens every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, roughly. I think with the time change, sometimes it changes, but so start there. We've got a Discord channel, Discord server. So if you're into Discord and finding a community, find us on Discord. And other than that, just shoot us an email at hello@343labs.com. Also, if you're interested in our 1-year program, you can find more info on our website.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Max, man, it's been great connecting, and appreciate the resources that you've created for helping artists to actually take their music and producers and help them to get it released and find accountability in the community and everything. So definitely encourage anyone that's listening or watching this right now to go check out the events and the resources and look at the 1-year program if you're looking to elevate your own career. And thanks again for being on the podcast today.
You're welcome. It's great being here. Thanks.
Yeah, let's go.